I have a fiance named Ethan. For this military training session, he's the chief military instructor for my course. And I, Serena, am about to make history that subsequent classes will probably still be reeling from. September blistering hot, sweat pouring down. Location the shooting range. I'm a clueless design student, weak hands, nearsighted eyes, and artist's soul. And then there's Ethan, my fiancé name, with a face colder than the king of hell. He was demonstrating each movement, raising the gun, aiming, firing, all executed flawlessly, like a handsome, charismatic sculpture that was almost too perfect. But his gaze, as it swept over me, was as icy as a glacier, without a single ripple. We lived in the same house, yet we were more distant than strangers. Today's simulated scenario was a hostage rescue. Ethan's voice rang out, "The black targets are the hostages. The black and white targets are the enemy. Your mission, eliminate the enemy, protect the hostages." I looked at the intricately arranged, challenging targets. The hostages almost completely obscured the enemies. A surge of pure panic rose to my throat. "Serena, position number 3, my world crumbled. He called out my name. Hundreds of eyes stared at me. My heart plummeted to the ground. I lay down in position, my hands trembling uncontrollably. I focused on steadying my breathing. Ethan's deep voice resonated right behind me. For a second, my brain completely shut down. I took a deep breath, trying to squint. My thick glasses seemed useless under the harsh sun, sweat blurring everything. Through the sights, the black and white enemy targets and the black hostage heads merged into a messy blur, dancing wildly. "Calm down, aim for the black and white." I held my breath, squeezed the trigger, and a target fell. It seemed to be a black-headed target. It must just be the angle, I reassured myself. "Come on, Serena." I aimed again, more carefully this time, directly at a black and white streak peeking out from behind a black head. Bang, another black head fell. What the hell is going on? Panic began to creep in. No way. My hands trembled violently, sweat pouring off me like I'd just stepped out of a shower. "Come on, just one enemy, just one," I screamed silently in my head. Bang, bang, I fired almost unconsciously with only one thought in my mind, hit the black and white target. But strangely, each time a bullet flew, the one that fell was always the hostage target directly above. The entire shooting range fell into an eerie silence. Finally, only one lone black and white target remained. This is it. There's nothing blocking it this time. I gathered all my strength, held my breath, and aimed perfectly. Bang, the sole enemy fell. At least I hit one, that's some consolation. I breathed a sigh of relief and turned to look at my fiancé to see his reaction, but it wasn't what I expected. The whole world stared at me as if I'd just landed from Mars. My team leader's face was utterly drained of color, and Ethan, his handsome face was grim, radiating a murderous aura that could freeze the entire range. The team leader stammered as he ran over to report. "Commander Ethan, Serena's results?" He took a deep breath. "One enemy eliminated, all hostages eliminated." Uncontrollable laughter began to erupt, then roared like a storm, spreading across the field. Ethan walked directly in front of me, his shadow swallowing me whole. He leaned into my ear, enunciating each word. "Serena, after practice, come to my office." He really left, sir. The atmosphere in Ethan's office could be described with 2 words: suffocating. The room was decorated in a minimalist style, almost inhuman. Apart from a desk and chair, an iron filing cabinet, and a flag, there was nothing else. Cold, rigid, just like its owner. I stood in the middle of the room, my hands unconsciously twisting together. I'm dead for sure. No one can souse me out of this one. Ethan sat behind his desk, his back perfectly straight. He didn't look at me, silently cleaning a silver pistol. Each movement was slow, careful, possessing a strange, captivating beauty. The silence dragged on, an invisible pressure weighing heavily on my shoulders. I knew he was waiting for me to confess. This time, I couldn't argue with logic. Clearly, I was terribly wrong. I mumbled, my voice barely a whisper, "Commander Ma." Click, the dry sound of metal against metal echoed. He loaded the magazine into the gun. "What did you call me?" His voice wasn't loud, but it sent a chill down my spine. Damn it, I called him that out of habit again. Calling him Commander Ma on the range was fine, but here, it was just the 2 of us. "Ethan," I corrected myself, my voice tiny. He placed the gun on the table and finally looked up at me. His dark eyes were as deep as an abyss, swirling directly into mine. Do you know you just set a new record for the Academy? A new record? What could I possibly have done to set a record? The record for the worst shooting performance in history. My face burned, a furious blush creeping up. Is he praising me or mocking me? I had naively thought it was some glorious, lifelong record. The word nearsighted explained it, just 2 words, but their weight felt like 1,000 pounds. I took a deep breath, stammering, I didn't mean to. Ethan said nothing, just watched me in silence, waiting. It's because I'm very nearsighted, and the sun today was a bit harsh, sweat ran into my eyes, so my vision wasn't very clear. The more I spoke, the softer my voice became. I really tried to aim for the enemy targets, truly. But I don't know why the bullets kept flying into the hostage targets. After hearing my explanation, Ethan didn't get angry, nor did he laugh. He just looked at me with an incredibly calm gaze, but it was precisely that calmness that was the most terrifying. He picked up the results report from his desk and scanned it. Serena, design student, he read aloud, his voice even. Hostage rescue results, 1 enemy down, 10 hostages down. He put the paper down, stood up, and slowly walked around the desk, heading towards me. I instinctively took a step back. Nearsighted, inaccurate aiming, he repeated my words, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You think those explanations are enough? If they're not enough, what am I supposed to do? Should I just blurt out that I have no skill, then you'd be satisfied? He stopped right in front of me. The distance between us was only a hand span. He was much taller than me. I had to crane my neck to see his chin. Do you know that your actions today turned your department into a laughingstock for the entire academy? Do you know? He leaned down, his voice lowering until only the 2 of us could hear. You made this chief instructor, your fiancé, completely lose face. Stung to the quick, I retorted instinctively, no one knows about our relationship. Don't worry, it won't affect anything. Ethan suddenly gave a cold, sneering laugh. Oh, so tell me, if they knew Ethan's fiancé was a shooting genius who only knew how to aim at hostages, how great would my reputation be? His strong masculine scent enveloped me, the immense pressure making it hard to breathe. I took another step back, my spine hitting the cold iron filing cabinet. No escape. Ethan rested one hand on the cabinet, right beside my head, completely trapping me between him and the metal cabinet. This move was too bold. My face burned like fire. This is an office. He leaned in even closer, his handsome face magnified before my eyes. His hot breath brushed against my cheek. Your excellent performance from now on will likely be hard for anyone to surpass. His voice grew husky, carrying an unnamed danger. It seems ordinary military discipline isn't enough to teach you a lesson. So what do you want? I stammered. He curled his lip, a smile both alluring and dangerous. From today, every evening come here. My heart skipped a beat. I will personally teach you. He leaned close to my ear, his voice a mesmerizing whisper, how to shoot with your eyes open. That evening, I was promptly at Ethan's office door. All afternoon, I had lived in fear and confusion. His words echoed in my ears, I will personally teach you how to shoot with your eyes open. On the surface, it sounded very responsible, but somehow it just felt off. I took a deep breath, raised my hand, and knocked on the door. Come in. The voice from inside was still as cold as ice. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Ethan wasn't sitting behind his desk anymore. He stood in the middle of the room, still in his crisp military uniform. He had taken off his cap and gloves, revealing his neatly short-cropped black hair and large, clearly jointed hands. The main lights in the room weren't on. Only a warm yellow desk lamp cast a soft glow, making the angles of his face even more pronounced, captivatingly deadly. Come here, he commanded. I obediently walked over, stopping about 3 steps away from him a safe distance, but he didn't seem to think so. He took a long stride, closing the gap between us. Ready stance, he said. Raise both hands, mimicking holding a gun. I hesitated for a moment, then complied. My 2 raised hands looked stiff and comical. Ethan subtly frowned. He said nothing more, acting directly. He stepped behind me. Immediately, my entire body stiffened. His familiar masculine scent enveloped me from behind. I could feel the warmth of his body radiating onto the back of my neck. Relax, His deep voice resonated right above my head. Easy for him to say. With a portable heater pressed against my back, how am I supposed to relax? Suddenly, one of his large hands rested on my waist. Gasp, I jumped. Don't arch your back, straighten up, he said, and his hand applied gentle but firm pressure, adjusting my posture. Through my thin shirt, I could clearly feel the warmth and roughness of his palm. A tingling electric current ran down my spine, my face burning hot. He wasn't done yet. His other hand wrapped around to the front, taking hold of my raised arms. He gently adjusted the angle, separating my elbows, lowering my shoulders. Don't tense up, just like this. I was completely enveloped within his embrace from behind. My entire body nestled against him, my back almost glued to his firm chest. I could even hear the steady, powerful thumping of his heart. This position makes it so easy to misunderstand. Is this really shooting instruction, or is it just disguised PDA? You're breathing. He suddenly leaned close to my ear, his hot breath brushing against my sensitive earlobe. Everything's a mess. My ear feels like it's on fire. Inhale, exhale slowly. His voice was mesmerizing, both commanding and seductive. Focus on the target in front of you. Imagine there's an enemy there. Another enemy. The biggest enemy is right behind me. Serena, he called my name, his voice dangerously husky. You're shaking. I wasn't just shaking, I was about to faint on the spot. His hand on my waist subtly tightened. If you can't focus, I won't hesitate to use stronger measures to help you remember the lesson. Stronger measures? 1,001 blush-inducing scenarios flashed through my mind. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. The ambiguous atmosphere, the intimate posture, the suggestive words, everything made my head spin. Is this ultimately a punishment, or is it? I dared not think further. The first training session ended when I was on the verge of collapsing from lack of oxygen. He suddenly let go of me, taking a step back, returning to his usual cold demeanor. That's enough for today. Tomorrow, same time. I felt like I'd been pardoned. Not daring to look at him, I mumbled, "Yes, sir," then turned and bolted out the door as if a ghost were chasing me. Running out of the command building, the biting night wind whipped across my face, but it couldn't cool my burning cheeks. I touched my chest, my heart was still pounding wildly. This training is truly something else. I thought after a tumultuous night, I would have better immunity. But no, when I stood before the familiar office door again, my heart still pounded like crazy. Last night, the lingering sensation of his firm embrace and hot breath tormented me all night, making me toss and turn sleeplessly. Come in, still those two words, still that cold tone. I stepped inside. Unlike yesterday, today on Ethan's desk was not a pistol, but an assault rifle identical to the one I used on the range, next to it a shiny coin. "Where did we leave off yesterday?" he asked, as if a teacher checking homework. I mumbled, the ready stance. "Pick up the gun and get into position." I walked over and picked up the gun. It was heavy and cold. I got into position, trying to recall every detail he had adjusted. Ethan circled me, his gaze sharp like a scanner. "Still shaking," he concluded. "Your trigger pull is not decisive, it's jerky. That's why your shots fly wildly." He picked up the coin from the table. "Today, we'll practice a simple exercise," he said, stepping in front of me. "Hold the gun steady, don't move." He reached out, carefully placing the coin on the front sight of the gun. "Your exercise," he said, stepping back, arms crossed over his chest, watching me, "is to pull the trigger." Pull the trigger clicks, but the coin must not fall. What? I blinked, looking at the coin precariously balanced on the gun barrel. If my hand shakes even a little, it'll fall immediately. This exercise is too inhuman. "Try it," he commanded. I took a deep breath, held it, and placed my trembling index finger on the trigger. I tried to squeeze the trigger very slowly, very gently. Clang! The coin fell to the floor, rolled around, and lay still. My face burned. Again, I picked up the coin and put it back in place. Clang, the second time, clang, the third time. Again, again, again. After more than 10 failures, my forehead was dotted with sweat, my hands were both tired and trembling. "You're not using your entire finger to pull the trigger," he said, his deep voice resonating right beside my ear. "You need to use the first joint of your finger to squeeze it slowly and smoothly." As he spoke, he reached out his right hand, his large, warm hand completely enveloping my hand holding the gun. His index finger rested gently on top of my index finger, where it was on the trigger. My skin directly touched his. I could clearly feel the calluses and roughness on his fingers, sense the hidden strength within them. My entire body stiffened. "Relax," he commanded, but his voice was almost a whisper. "Feel my force." He didn't just speak, his hand, holding mine, subtly tightened. His other hand rested on my shoulder, pressing down gently. "Relax your shoulders, breathe deeply." I mechanically followed, holding my breath, his hot breath fanning the back of my neck. "Now, slowly squeeze the trigger." His index finger applied a gentle yet decisive force, guiding my finger to squeeze the trigger inwards. The movement was incredibly smooth, stable. Click! The dry sound of the hammer striking echoed, the coin on the barrel only vibrated slightly, then remained still. Success, but I had no mind to celebrate because immediately after, I heard his husky voice right beside my ear, carrying an unreadable hint of a smile. "See, it's very simple. You can do it, right?" Ethan's words were like a spell, freezing me on the spot. His deep, husky voice, laced with amusement, exhaled warmth into my ear. Me, what did I do? And where were we in the lesson again? My brain completely rebooted. I could only nod unconsciously, like a puppet. Ethan seemed very pleased with my reaction. He slowly released my hand. The warmth suddenly vanished, my hand suddenly felt empty and cold. A strange sense of loss crept into my heart. Again, he stepped back, crossing his arms, returning to his strict instructor demeanor. "This time, you do it yourself." Again, I had just escaped his clutches, and now I had to face that damn coin myself again. I shakily picked up the gun, but my mind was a jumbled mess. The sensation of his large hand, of his calluses, of his warmth and strength seemed to still be imprinted on my skin. I tried to recreate the movement from earlier. Inhale, hold breath, squeeze trigger. Clang, the coin fell to the ground without mercy. Again, clang, again, clang. After several consecutive failures, frustration and shame welled up. Why does it work when he's there, but it's a disaster without him? Am I addicted to the feeling of him holding my hand? Oh my God, Serena, what are you thinking? Seeing me struggling, Ethan suddenly spoke. "What are you thinking about?" His question was like a needle pricking a taut balloon in my chest. I startled, stammering, I'm thinking about how to hold the gun steady." He shook his head slightly, walking closer. This time, he didn't stand behind me but stood facing me, his gaze directly meeting mine. The distance was very close, so close I could clearly see my own reflection in his deep, dark eyes. "Wrong." His voice deepened, full of enchantment. "Don't think about the gun, don't think about your hands. The more you think, the more they will shake." "So, what should I think about?" I asked naively. Ethan subtly curled his lip, his smile looking utterly devilish under the yellow light. "Think about the target," he said. "Or," he paused, deliberately dragging out the syllable, "think about how it felt just now." A bolt of lightning struck me. Think about how it felt just now? That was the feeling of his hand completely enveloping mine. That was the feeling of his breath on the back of my neck. That was the feeling of my whole body being trapped in his embrace. He's deliberately teasing me. This isn't training, this is blatant flirting. My face flushed crimson. I could feel the blood boiling within me. Seeing my flustered expression, the amusement in Ethan's eyes deepened. "Try it," he said, his tone as if bestowing a favor upon me. "Choose one of the two." I bit my lip, screaming in my heart, either choice is death, but facing his intimidating gaze, I had no other option. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. "All right, Ethan, you forced me." I opened my eyes, but I didn't look at the coin anymore. I looked at an indefinite spot on the wall behind him. In my head, I forced myself to rewind the scene from just now. The feeling of stability, of strength, of guidance that allowed no resistance. I held my breath, my finger on the trigger, slowly squeezing. Click, the sound of the hammer echoed. I slowly lowered my eyes. The coin was still resting silently on the gun barrel. I actually did it. I snapped my head up, looking at him with utter astonishment, my joy unmistakable. Ethan only nodded slightly, his expression showing no surprise, as if everything was within his expectations. "Not bad," he said. "It seems this method is quite effective for you." Then he glanced at my flushed face and slightly trembling hands, adding a meaningful sentence. "Your body knows how to obey better than you do." With that, he turned and walked towards his desk. Go home, continue tomorrow. I stood there frozen for a few seconds, then as if waking from a dream, I hastily put the gun down and rushed out the door as if fleeing a battle. Tonight, I feared I would have another sleepless night, because Commander Ethan's strong measures were truly too terrifying. Over the next few days, Ethan and my training continued. Thanks to his effective, strong measures, my gun stability skills improved by leaps and bounds. The coin now obediently stayed put on the gun barrel, no longer falling freely as before. I thought I was about to be freed, but I was too naive. That evening, when I stepped into the office, what awaited me was not the familiar rifle. On the desk, a silver pistol lay disassembled into its components on a black velvet cloth. Beside it was a black silk ribbon. My heart pounded another bad omen. Ethan sat behind his desk, his deep eyes looking at me. "The gun stability exercise is complete," he said. "Today, we learn a new lesson, the feel of the gun." "The feel of the gun," I repeated blankly. "Exactly." He stood up, picking up the black silk ribbon. "A good marksman doesn't just rely on their eyes, but also on the feel of their hands. You must be as familiar with the gun's structure as you are with the palm of your hand." He walked towards me, the black silk ribbon in his hand looking like a dangerous little snake. "Your mission today," he paused in front of me, "is to fully assemble this gun." "Just that," I sighed in relief. I had learned how to assemble a gun in class. "Blindfolded," he added the second half of the sentence. My face changed color. "Blindfolded? He's not kidding, is he? Normally, with my eyes open, I make mistakes left and right. Now, blindfolded, it's like a blind person walking in the dark." Without waiting for me to object, Ethan walked behind me. He raised the silk ribbon, gently tying it over my eyes. The world before me plunged into darkness, all my other senses suddenly sharpened. I could clearly hear his steady breathing, smell the faint scent of gunpowder on him, feel the warmth from his body so close. "Begin," his voice rang out. It seemed he had returned to stand in front of me. I fumbled my way to the table, my trembling hands touching the cold metal components. I tried to recall the assembly sequence, but my mind was a jumbled mess. My hands picked up two parts, trying to fit them together. Clang, they didn't fit. I tried again with a different part. Click, still no match. After 10 minutes of fumbling in the dark, I still hadn't put a single component in the right place. My forehead began to sweat. Helplessness and shame enveloped me. Suddenly, I heard a familiar sigh. Then I felt him approaching, very close. "Sit down," he commanded. I hastily obeyed. Ethan also sat down in front of me. One of his knees touched the ground, the other hand he rested on it. "Give me your hands." I obediently held out my hands. He said nothing, just took both my hands in his. His hands were large, warm, completely enveloping my hands, which were cold from tension. He guided my hands to touch each component. "This is the gun frame," his deep voice whispered. "This is the barrel. This is the recoil spring." He patiently guided my hands to pick up each part, feeling their shapes and edges. His fingers occasionally brushed against the back of my hand, my palm, sending tingling electric shocks through me. In the darkness, this skin-on-skin contact became incredibly ambiguous. "Now, put the barrel on first." He took my hand and placed the barrel into the correct position on the gun frame. Click, a small sound echoed. "It's in." "Good," he praised softly. It was the first time he had praised me, and an indescribable joy surged within me. I was so happy I forgot the current situation. I reflexively turned my head towards the sound, intending to give him a smile. But I had forgotten I was blindfolded, and he was sitting very close. When I turned my head, a soft, warm sensation suddenly touched my lips. Time seemed to stop. The space plunged into absolute silence. I could only hear my heart pounding, as if it wanted to tear through my chest. I just kissed him, or more precisely, my lips just touched his cheek or his chin or his lips. In the darkness, I couldn't tell, but that soft sensation was so real it made my whole body burn hot, my mind blank. After a second of petrification, I hastily pulled back as if electrocuted. Ethan also froze, his hand holding mine subtly tightened. The atmosphere became extremely awkward. Just as I thought I would die of embarrassment, I heard a soft chuckle, a deep laugh from his chest, carrying an undisguised hint of teasing. "Serena," his husky voice echoed in the quiet space. "Is this practicing close quarters contact?" "Close quarters contact? He dares to tease me?" my entire body flushed as if I had a fever. My first reaction was to raise my hand, intending to rip off this damn blindfold to see his expression. But a hand was faster. Ethan's large hand gently held my wrist, stopping my action. During training hours, you're not allowed to violate regulations. His voice still carried a hint of amusement, but it also contained an authoritative undertone that allowed no resistance. Your exercise isn't finished yet. What? Still going? In such an embarrassing situation, we're still continuing. Is his heart made of iron? I stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. Ethan didn't release my hand. He still held my wrist, then slowly pulled my hand back to its original position, placing it on the cold gun components. "What's wrong?" he asked softly. His voice, almost imperceptible, brushed past my ear. "Your face is hot, and your heart is beating fast too." Oh my God, he even leaned in to listen to my heartbeat. The shame reached its peak. I just wanted to find a hole to crawl into. "Focus," he commanded, his voice suddenly serious. "Keep assembling." His hand finally released my wrist, but I couldn't focus anymore. My mind was now filled only with the image of that accidental kiss, that soft, warm sensation, and his teasing remark. My hands trembled as I picked up two components, trying to fit them together. Completely impossible. My mind was blank. At that moment, I heard his familiar sigh again. "You truly need special guidance." Before I could understand what special guidance meant, Ethan acted. He stood up and moved behind me. This deadly posture again, but this time it was even more egregious. He didn't just stand behind me, he sat down, pressing his firm chest against my back. His two hands wrapped around my shoulders, reaching forward. "Don't move," he whispered. Then his two hands completely enveloped mine again. But this time, it wasn't guidance, it was complete control. He used his hands to absolutely control mine. My hands rested neatly in his palms, completely passive. "Feel carefully," his voice resonated beside my ear. "This is how the parts fit together." He controlled my hands, picking up each component, assembling them with astonishing speed and precision. Click, click, the crisp sounds of metal clashing echoed. But I couldn't focus on the gun anymore. All my attention was on my back, pressed tightly against his chest, on my hands enveloped by his, on his steady masculine breath fanning the back of my neck. My entire body was like a wooden puppet, letting him control me. In the darkness, the feeling of being completely controlled by him like this was both terrifying and strangely safe. In just a few tens of seconds, the gun was fully assembled. Ethan's hands still hadn't let go. He took my hands, hand in hand, and together we placed the assembled gun on the table. Then he slowly withdrew his hands. The feeling of emptiness and loss surged again. I remained motionless, the silk ribbon still covering my eyes. I heard him stand up. I thought today's training was over, but no, he didn't return to his desk. He still stood behind me. After a few seconds of silence, he suddenly gently untied the silk ribbon from my eyes. The dim light from the desk lamp abruptly hit my eyes, making me squint. When I had adjusted to the light and opened my eyes, he was standing upright, having stepped back half a pace, arms crossed over his chest. He looked down at me from above, still sitting on the floor, my hair a little messy, my face crimson. His gaze was deep, scanning me from head to toe, finally resting on my lips. For a moment, I saw a flicker of amusement in his eyes, then it vanished, replaced by a darker, deeper emotion that I couldn't read. The atmosphere was suffocatingly silent. Finally, he spoke, his voice noticeably husky, carrying an undeniable command. "Today's exercise is over. You go home first. Wait for me there." I stood transfixed in front of the kitchen counter, staring at the eggs, a few green onions, and a pack of ham. My brain was screaming, "What is this? Are they edible? How do you eat them?" For a culinary god who only knew how to make instant noodles, this pile of ingredients was no different from a quantum physics problem. "Not starting yet?" Ethan's voice rang out from behind, pulling me from my chaotic thoughts. "Or do you want me to switch to another form of punishment?" I jumped. Another punishment? No, I'd rather combat these eggs. I nervously picked up an egg. Step 1, crack the egg. This much I knew. I took a breath and gently tapped the egg against the rim of the bowl. Clink, the eggshell only cracked slightly. I used a little more force. Crack. Half the egg shattered in my hand, whites and yolks oozing between my fingers onto the counter, creating a slimy battlefield. It's over. My face flushed with embarrassment. I fumbled for a tissue to wipe my hands, but the more I wiped, the messier it got. A familiar sigh echoed. Ethan walked over and took my hand. He didn't say a word, pulling my hand under the faucet, carefully rinsing the mess off my hand. The water was cold, but his hand holding my wrist was burning hot. "Just cracking an egg and you can create such a disaster," he said, his tone not accusatory, but rather one of helplessness. After washing my hands, he didn't let go. He pulled me back to the counter. "Watch." He picked up an egg, and with one decisive tap against the rim of the bowl, the eggshell split perfectly in half, the round yolk dropping neatly into the bowl. His movements were neat, beautiful, like a performance art. "Try again," he said, pushing the bowl towards me. Looking at his skillful movements, I mumbled, "You know how to cook." "A little," he replied. "In the military, you have to know everything." Oh my God, a man who is handsome, a good shot, and can cook too. Does he want others to live? Under his supervision, I finally managed to crack the remaining 2 eggs into the bowl safely. Next were the green onions and ham. Looking at the sharp kitchen knife, my hand started to tremble again. Ethan sighed again. "Give me your hand." Before I could react, he stepped behind me again. This deadly posture again? He took my hand, the one holding the knife. His large hand completely enveloped mine. "Relax, feel my rhythm," he whispered, his hot breath fanning my neck. His firm chest was almost pressed against my back. I could clearly feel his steady heartbeat. He guided my hand, raising the knife, bringing the knife down. Chop, chop, chop. Each slice of ham, each piece of green onion was cut perfectly evenly. This isn't teaching me how to cook, this is clearly abusing his authority for physical contact. "Focus," his voice grew husky. "You're shaking again." How can I not shake? He's like a big bear hugging me from behind, his strong masculine scent enveloping me. I'm about to suffocate. After cutting the ingredients, he still hadn't let go of me. He continued to guide me to the stove. One hand still held mine, the other wrapped around my waist, turning on the burner. For the final step, he controlled my hand to pour oil into the pan, add the ham to stir-fry, then the eggs and onions. The delicious aroma quickly spread throughout the kitchen. At this point, I was no longer myself. I was like a wooden doll, trapped in his embrace, letting him control every movement. When the fried egg with ham was finally transferred to a plate, he slowly released me. I hastily stepped back a few paces, panting as if I had just escaped death. He looked at me, his gaze deep and unreadable, then looked at the plate of eggs on the table. "Take it out," he said. "Your first masterpiece." I pouted. "My masterpiece, my foot, it's clearly yours." I carried the plate of food to the dining table. He had already sat down. The atmosphere was no longer tense like in the office, but had a strange warmth to it. He picked up his chopsticks, picked up a piece of egg, and slowly put it in his mouth. I held my breath, watching him, waiting for his verdict. He chewed very slowly, his face expressionless. "How is it?" I couldn't help but ask. Ethan put down his chopsticks and looked up at me. He didn't answer immediately, just stared at me. After a few seconds, he subtly curved his lips. "Acceptable." Hearing Ethan's 2 words, "acceptable," I breathed a sigh of relief. I thought the torture session was over. I hastily stood up, intending to clean up and then sneak back to my room. But Ethan had put down his chopsticks, crossed his arms over his chest, his eyes looking at me meaningfully. "Sit down." I froze, then obediently sat back in my seat. "You thought the punishment was over?" he asked, his tone as if talking to a foolish child. "Is there more?" He gestured with his chin towards the empty plate and bowl on the dining table. "After eating, you have to clean up. This is also part of the punishment, cultivating a sense of responsibility from the smallest tasks." His reasoning always sounded perfectly logical. I mumbled, "Yes, sir," gathered the dishes, and trudged towards the sink. He didn't stay seated at the table but also stood up and followed me. He said nothing, just leaned against the refrigerator, arms crossed, silently observing. The pressure from behind was even more terrifying than being directly supervised by him. I turned on the faucet, poured a generous amount of dish soap onto the sponge, and began scrubbing the plate. Because I was so tense, I used a little too much force. Splash. The plate slipped from my hand, falling into the sink, splashing water everywhere, even onto his shirt. I froze. Oh no, this time I've added insult to injury. I fumbled for a tissue, intending to wipe him, but he raised his hand to stop me. Another familiar sigh. He stepped closer, pressing me between him and the sink. The cramped kitchen space left me no room to retreat. Just washing dishes and you want to wreck the kitchen? His deep voice resonated beside my ear. He reached out and took my hand, the one holding the sponge. This tactic again. Watch carefully, he said, his large hand completely enveloping mine, moving slowly and gently over the surface of the plate. No need for force, just rotate clockwise. His firm chest was almost pressed against my back. I could clearly feel his warmth and his strong heartbeat. The atmosphere became ambiguous again. Just then, Ethan's phone in his pocket suddenly rang, breaking the awkward silence. I jumped, instinctively trying to pull back, but he held my hand tightly, not letting me move. His other hand pulled out his phone. He glanced at the screen, his eyebrows subtly furrowing, then he did something that made me freeze. He pressed answer and put it on speakerphone. Hello, Mom. Ethan's voice was still calm, but I could hear a rare gentleness. Mom, his mom. Ethan, it's late. Aren't you asleep yet, son? A kind, middle-aged woman's voice came from the other end of the line. I just finished work and am having a late dinner. Late dinner? Eating some random takeout from a restaurant again, aren't you? I told you not to. Ethan interrupted his mother, then he subtly glanced at me, saying something that almost made me drop the plate. Serena cooked it for me. The air was silent for a few seconds, then Ethan's mother's voice on the other end suddenly became joyful and excited. Really? Oh, Serena is so sweet. What did she cook for you? Fried eggs with ham, Ethan replied, his face unchanged. Very delicious. Delicious? He just said acceptable earlier. What a smooth talker. That's great then. You must eat a lot, dear. With Serena by your side to take care of you, I feel relieved. Ethan's mother said, then her voice suddenly became mischievous. What are you two doing? Ethan glanced at me, his hand holding mine subtly tightened. We're washing dishes together. This answer seemed to greatly please Ethan's mother on the other end. She chuckled. All right, I won't bother you two anymore. Ethan, you must treat Serena well, don't bully her, understand? Yes, I know, Mom. Good night. Good evening, Auntie, I said, not looking at the phone. Oh, we're going to be family anyway. Why be shy? Just call me Mom to get used to it. All right, you two go to bed early too. The call ended. Silence enveloped the kitchen, but the atmosphere had completely changed. The previous ambiguity had transformed into an inescapable awkwardness. He just performed a perfect newlywed couple act in front of his mother. I tried to pull my hand out of his. This time, he didn't hold it. I took a step back, not daring to look him in the eye. Not a bad performance, he suddenly spoke, his voice returning to its usual coldness. He turned to face me, the kitchen lights reflecting in his eyes, creating unpredictable glints. You should remember, he stepped closer, lowering his voice, in front of adults, we are a happy couple. He stopped right in front of me, his deep, dark eyes looking directly into mine, carrying a layer of meaning I couldn't comprehend. So, Serena, get used to it. Those 4 words were light as a feather, but they hit my ears with the weight of 1,000 pounds. Get used to it. My brain officially crashed. I stood there frozen, staring at Ethan, trying to find a hint of a joke in his eyes, but no, in those deep, dark eyes, there was only seriousness that allowed no resistance. What do you mean? I stammered, finally finding my voice. Ethan subtly curled his lip. He didn't answer my question, but offered a remark instead. Your coordination in that play just now wasn't bad, he said, but it's still a bit stiff. You need to practice more. Practice what the hell else? Acting is like shooting, he continued his domineering logic. It requires perfect synergy between the person and the gun, between you and me. He deliberately emphasized the last 4 words, his eyes looking at me full of hidden meaning. I'm doomed. My gut tells me a mission even more horrifying than shooting and cooking is about to descend upon me. Exactly as I predicted, he said. Tomorrow, his tone like giving a military assignment, bring me lunch at the office. A bolt of lightning struck me. What? I shrieked, forgetting to maintain my image, but I don't know how to cook. You just learned, didn't you? He countered, cutting me off. Fried eggs with ham. But I didn't ask for gourmet food, he interrupted again, giving me no room to refute. A fiancé bringing lunch to her hardworking fiancé is perfectly reasonable. He took another step, closing the distance between us. My mother would be very happy to know her future daughter-in-law cares about me so much. It's his mother again. He always knows how to use this immunity card to suppress me. But it's embarrassing to bring it to school. I tried to struggle one last time. Everyone will stare. Even better then, he said casually. Consider it a public acting practice session to see how much our synergy has improved. No more room for argument. All my excuses were mercilessly shattered by his logic. He looked at my bedraggled expression, satisfaction clearly visible in his eyes. He reached out a hand, but not to touch me. Instead, he gently picked off a grain of rice that had somehow stuck to my cheek. This unexpected, gentle action made my heart skip a beat again. Go to sleep, he said, his voice suddenly softened a little. Don't wake up late tomorrow morning. With that, he turned and leisurely walked to his room, leaving me alone in the kitchen with a jumble of emotions and an impossible mission. That night, I was sleepless again. But this time, it wasn't because of the lingering touch. It was because I was racking my brain, trying to figure out how to fry eggs tomorrow without destroying the kitchen. Commander Ethan's punishment had truly been elevated to a new level from private training to public performance. The next morning, I woke up with dark circles under my eyes like a panda. All night, I had been searching online for fried egg and ham recipes for beginners and how not to destroy your kitchen. The result was me stepping into the kitchen with a do-or-die for the country spirit. The first time, the eggs burned to a crisp. The second time, I forgot to add salt. The third time, I accidentally poured the entire jar of pepper in. After sacrificing almost all the eggs in the fridge, I finally produced a plate of fried eggs that was acceptable in shape. It was a little burnt, and the color wasn't very appealing. At least it was cooked. I carefully placed my masterpiece into a pastel pink thermal lunchbox that I had no idea Ethan had prepared. Holding the lunchbox in my hands, I felt like I was carrying a ticking time bomb. The road from the villa to the academy had never seemed so long. I deliberately took the most circuitous routes, my head bowed, wishing I could turn invisible, but it was useless. Hey, look, isn't that the hostage-killing sharpshooter? That's right, what's she holding? A lunchbox. Oh my God, who is she bringing lunch for? Don't tell me. The whispers and murmurs flew into my ears from all directions. I could feel dozens of eyes glued to the pink lunchbox in my hands as if it were an alien artifact. In just one morning, I had acquired a new nickname, the mysterious lunchbox girl. My face burned like fire. Ethan, I hate you. Finally, I reached the command building, the workplace of the military instructors. For ordinary students, this place was forbidden territory. I stood before the door, inhaling and exhaling several times, still not brave enough to step inside. Just as I was about to turn and run, a familiar voice rang out. Serena, it was my team leader. He was holding a stack of documents, looking at me with extreme astonishment. You came here for what? I came to find someone, I stammered. The team leader's gaze fixed on the lunchbox in my hand, then he seemed to realize something, his face revealing a look of utter shock. My presence and the team leaders had attracted the attention of a few other passing instructors. They all looked at me with curious eyes. No turning back now. I gritted my teeth, bowed to the team leader, and walked straight towards Ethan's office. The office door was slightly ajar. I could hear his voice talking to someone inside. I raised my hand to knock, but the door suddenly opened from within. Ethan appeared. He merely glanced at me, then turned to speak to the instructor walking with him. Let's decide on this matter. Then he turned back to look at me. Under the curious gaze of the other instructor and the still frozen team leader in the distance, he calmly reached out and took the lunchbox from my hand. His warm fingers brushed lightly against the back of my hand. Go back to class, he said. His tone was still cold, but it contained an inexplicable familiarity. With that, he held the lunchbox, turned, and firmly closed the door in front of me, leaving me standing alone to face the impending storm of gossip. I scrambled away from the scene as fast as I could. All that day, I lived like a zombie. Everywhere I went, I could feel eyes and whispers behind my back. By afternoon, when I was almost exhausted, my phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number, but I knew who it was from. The message was very short. Exhibit burnt, too much salt. My heart sank. Oh no, criticized again. Immediately after, a second message arrived: double punishment tonight. These 6 words hung over my head like a death sentence all afternoon. I walked to Ethan's office with the mood of a condemned prisoner going to the execution ground. What bizarre game will he come up with this time? Double punishment. Will he make me practice the ready stance until morning, or make me clean all the guns in the armory? I knocked on the door, my heart lodged in my throat. Come in. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Ethan was sitting behind his desk. On the desk, there was no gun, no silk ribbon, only a towering stack of documents. Seeing me, he just gestured with his chin towards the sofa opposite. Sit. I obediently sat down, my hands on my knees, back perfectly straight, in the posture of a student waiting for instruction from a teacher. He said nothing, continuing to bend over his documents. The fountain pen in his hand glided across the paper, creating steady rustling sounds. 5 minutes passed, then 10 minutes. He remained engrossed in his work, completely ignoring me. What kind of punishment is this? Torture by silence. Just as I was about to break, he suddenly looked up. Today, we continue advanced training. Advanced training? He stood up, walked to a corner of the room, and turned on a rather unusual-looking device. It projected a simulated shooting range onto the white wall opposite. Reaction exercise, he said, tossing me a simulated gun with a laser pointer. Random targets will appear on the screen. Your mission is to hit them as quickly as possible. This looked more interesting than the coin exercise. I held the gun and took my ready position. I raised the gun, aimed at the screen. Beep. A target appeared in the upper right corner. I quickly moved the barrel and the red laser beam hit the target. Good. Beep, beep. 2 other targets simultaneously appeared in completely different positions. I started to panic, hitting one, missing one. As time went on, the targets appeared faster and their positions became more challenging. I was completely spinning in circles, my hands starting to ache, my breathing becoming shallow. Too slow? Ethan's cold voice rang out. He walked over. This time, he didn't stand behind me. He stood facing me eye to eye. He suddenly reached out, one hand on my shoulder, the other behind my neck, gently adjusting my posture. Don't just move your arms, rotate your entire body, using your waist as the pivot. The distance between us was dangerously close. My breath brushed against his firm chest. I could clearly see each long, curved eyelash of his, even see my own panicked reflection in his deep eyes. Where are you looking? He subtly frowned. The targets are on the wall, not on my face. My face flushed crimson. I hastily turned my head, staring at the screen. Again! He didn't let go. He maintained that posture, one hand on my shoulder, one hand behind my neck. I was almost completely controlled by him. The exercise began again. Perhaps due to the pressure from him, my reflexes were strangely faster this time. My body moved almost instinctively, guided by his hand. Bang. Bang, target after target was eliminated. Not bad, his voice resonated right above my head. When the exercise ended, my entire body was sore. I let the simulated gun drop, my arms aching. I thought the double punishment was over, but no. Don't move, he commanded. He released me, walked to his desk, then returned with a small tube of ointment in his hand. He stood in front of me, opening the cap of the ointment. Give me your hands. I blankly held out my hands. He took my wrist, pulling it towards him, then squeezed a bit of white ointment onto his finger, gently rubbing it onto the back of my hand and my finger joints. What is this? I stammered. Pain relief ointment, he replied, his tone casual, but his movements were incredibly gentle. The training intensity is too high. If you don't massage it, you'll get injured. His rough fingers glided over my skin, carrying the coolness of the ointment and his own warmth, creating a strange sensation. My heart started pounding again. He's caring about me. After applying the ointment to both my hands, he silently tossed the tube into my lap. Take it, he said, his tone returning to its usual coldness. Don't be unable to hold a gun tomorrow. With that, he turned and returned to his desk. Time's up, go home. I stood there stunned, looking at the tube of ointment in my hand, then at his back. Today's punishment was truly too strange, both harsh and gentle. Was this Commander Ethan punishing me or finding an excuse to take care of me? The special training sessions became an indispensable part of my life. Every evening, I would voluntarily go to Ethan's office. His punishments became increasingly diverse and made me fantasize. from reaction training, assembling guns in the dark, to even identifying different types of guns just by touch. My skills, under his oppressive guidance, improved miraculously. I was no longer the trembling newbie holding a gun. My hand was steady, my reflexes much faster. There was even a time when I completed the pistol assembly exercise in the dark in just 1 minute, breaking my own record. That time, I really saw a fleeting smile on his lips. Though it lasted less than a second, it was enough to make my heart flutter all night. Our relationship also became strange. His touches still made me blush, but now there was also a sense of synergy and trust. I gradually grew used to being enveloped in his embrace, used to his deep voice resonating in my ear, even used to his clumsy but incredibly warm acts of care. Like how he always prepared a cold bottle of water after each training session, and 2 tubes of pain relief ointment always lay ready on his desk. The punishment seemed to have transformed into an excuse for him to openly and justifiably teach and care for me. That evening, the exercise was elevated to a new level of difficulty, shooting moving targets. The simulated screen showed a dense forest. Targets would move, peeking out from behind trees. "Targets won't stand still waiting for you to shoot," Ethan said, his tone serious. "You have to anticipate their direction of movement." I tried a few times, but the results were far from ideal. The targets moved too fast and erratically. I kept missing. "You're chasing the target, not hunting it," he frowned, seemingly displeased. "If you do that, you'll always be 1 step behind." He walked closer, and this time he stood right behind me. "Relax." He didn't just speak. One of his hands rested on my waist, applying a gentle but firm pressure. "Keep your balance steady, use your whole body to move, don't just use your hands." His other hand again enveloped my hand holding the gun, his chin almost resting on the top of my head. My entire body was once again locked in his embrace. This posture was even more intimate than all the previous times. "Watch carefully," he whispered, his hot breath brushing against my ear, making it tingle. "Don't chase the target, anticipate its path." He controlled my hand, moving the gun barrel to an empty space between 2 trees. "Now fire!" Just as the laser shot flew out, a target conveniently moved to that exact spot. "Bulls!" I widened my eyes in astonishment. "Understand?" His voice carried a hint of amusement. "Shoot to intercept." He controlled my hand to fire a few more shots. Every single one hit. His technique was truly exceptional. After demonstrating, he didn't release me immediately. He maintained that posture. In the quiet space, there was only the sound of our breathing. "Serena," he suddenly called my name, his voice husky. "Are you obedient?" I was blank, not understanding his question. "I asked," he repeated, his voice carrying an unnamed oppression. "Are you obedient to me?" "Yes, yes, I am," I answered instinctively. He chuckled softly, a deep laugh from his chest, piercing directly into my back. "Good." He leaned closer to my ear, his voice like a dangerous compliment. "As long as you are obedient, anything is possible." With that, he slowly released me. I stood there panting, my cheeks burning, my heart feeling like it wanted to burst out of my chest. His words were too ambiguous. Just then, a notice pinned to the school's bulletin board was sent to my phone. Ethan glanced at his phone, then looked at me, his gaze a bit complex. "What's wrong?" I asked curiously. He said nothing, just handed me his phone to see. On the screen was an announcement about the inter-academy military sports competition to be held at the end of the training period. And in the list of athletes participating in the shooting event for the design department, the name, Serena, was prominently displayed at the top. My face went pale. Immediately after, my phone also vibrated wildly. Messages in the class group chat popped up continuously. "Oh my God, Serena is representing our department in the shooting competition. It's over. Our department is going to be last again this time. I bet this time the hostages will still all die. I bet 10-1 she won't hit a single target." Looking at the teasing, mocking messages, an invisible pressure like a heavy rock pressed on my chest. I looked up at Ethan with pleading eyes, but he calmly put his phone in his pocket, looked at me, and said something that made me want to faint on the spot. "The opportunity for you to showcase your training results has arrived." A sharpshooter demonstrating her skills by eliminating all hostages. "No, I'm not competing," I almost screamed, throwing all shame aside, running to cling to his arm. "Ethan, please help me. Tell the organizers there's been a mistake. I can't participate." This was the first time I had actively touched him in such a pleading manner. Ethan didn't brush my hand away. He just looked down at me with an unreadable gaze. "Why not?" I'll make a fool of myself. I'll bring shame to our department," I stammered, my voice trembling. And I'll make you lose face." Hearing that last sentence, his eyes subtly gleamed. "You're afraid of making me lose face?" he asked again, his tone slightly profound. I nodded frantically. He suddenly chuckled, a deep laugh. "Serena, how much time and effort do you think I've spent teaching you?" he said, raising his other hand, gently prying my tightly clenched fingers from his hand, but not letting go, instead intertwining our fingers. This unexpected action froze me. He's intertwining my fingers. "Do you think those private tutoring sessions were just for fun?" He looked directly into my eyes, his voice becoming serious. "This is your final test. You have no right to refuse." He gently squeezed my hand. "Don't disappoint me," he said softly, yet it carried an invisible weight that shattered all my intentions to resist. The following days were nothing short of living hell for me. The intensity of the special training was pushed to the maximum. Ethan became stricter than ever. He made me train from evening until late at night, repeating monotonous exercises until my muscles felt like they were tearing apart. He used the pressure of the competition as an excuse for increasingly outrageous actions. "Nervous?" he frowned when he saw my hand tremble slightly. Without a word, he pressed his palm directly against my left chest, where my heart was pounding wildly. "Breathe deeply, control your own heartbeat." My face flushed crimson, my body stiff, allowing his hot hand to measure my heartbeat. "Unstable psychology," he concluded again when he saw me miss a moving target. The punishment was that he made me hold the gun in a ready stance while he stood opposite me, face to face, staring at me for 10 minutes straight. The distance between us was so close I could count his eyelashes. The day of the competition finally arrived. The vast shooting range was packed with people, the atmosphere both tense and noisy. Everyone seemed to be focused on the design department, or more precisely, on me. The whispers, the mocking glances, the sneers all directed at me. "Time for the show. I'm so excited. How many hostages will sacrifice themselves today?" I stood in line, my hands clammy, sweat pouring down. The immense pressure felt like it was crushing me. I wanted to run away. "Bib number 128, Serena, design department to firing position 3. The loudspeaker boomed, calling out my name. My legs felt like they were made of lead. I dragged my heavy steps to firing position 3. The fated position that had made my name. I lay down, raised the gun. But through the sights, everything was blurry. The surrounding noise was like a swarm of angry bees buzzing in my head, making it ache. My hands began to tremble violently. It's over. All his hard work will be for nothing. Just as I was about to give up, my eyes unintentionally flickered to the judges' area. Ethan sat there. He wasn't looking at the scoreboard, nor at the other judges. His cold, sharp gaze was fixed directly on me, as if in this vast shooting range in his eyes there was only me. There was no anxiety, no disappointment, only absolute trust, a silent command. Suddenly, all the noisy sounds around me vanished. The mocking words, the curious glances all disappeared. In my world, there was only his gaze, his every teaching, every handhold, every breath. Everything flooded my mind. Inhale, hold breath, slowly increase trigger pressure. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. When I opened my eyes, there was no more panic, only the target. Miraculously, my hands were no longer shaking. I slowly placed my finger on the trigger, feeling the cold familiarity of the metal. Bang, the first shot rang out, tearing through the tense air. The entire range fell silent. All eyes were fixed on the flashing electronic scoreboard. Time seemed to stand still for a moment as the scoreboard flickered. After a second, as long as a century, a bright red number appeared. Asterisk 10 points, bullseye. Oh, a ripple of astonished murmurs rose from the stands, quickly spreading across the entire range. The mocking laughter and sneers died down, replaced by disbelieving whispers. "What? 10 points? Is the scoring machine broken? It must be luck. Definitely luck." I heard nothing. After the first shot, I had completely entered a state of absolute concentration. My world narrowed, containing only me, the gun, and the target ahead. Ethan's gaze was like a lighthouse, illuminating and guiding me through the storm of pressure. I calmly loaded the second bullet. Inhale, hold breath, squeeze trigger. Bang, asterisk 10, another 10 points. If the first shot was luck, the second certainly wasn't. The stands completely erupted, no longer whispers, but shouts of astonishment. My team leader and the members of the design department stood in the waiting area, their eyes wide and mouths agape, looking at me as if they were seeing me for the first time. I still didn't care. I was like a pre-programmed machine. Every movement was precise and smooth, the result of countless nights of Ethan's oppression and punishment. Bang asterisk 9. Bang asterisk 10. Bang asterisk 9. Each shot flew out of the barrel, embedding itself directly into the highest scoring rings on the target. No more trembling, no more panic, only terrifying stability. The girl who was once the laughingstock of the entire school, the hostage-killing sharpshooter, was now putting on a near-perfect shooting display. The entire range transitioned from noisy chaos to utter silence. Everyone held their breath, watching my every shot, as if witnessing an unbelievable miracle. The final shot. I took a deep breath, my eyes scanning the judges' area one last time. Ethan still sat there, back straight, face as cold as stone, but I saw the corners of his lips subtly curve upwards. A smile almost imperceptible, but the greatest affirmation for me. I turned back and aimed at the target. Bang! The electronic scoreboard displayed the final total. Total score, 98-100. Our eyes met across the sea of people. He didn't smile, nor did he say anything. He just gave me a slight nod, a gentle nod. But to me, it was more precious than 1,000 words of praise. The final test, I passed. After being cheered by my teammates, I was almost exhausted. I found an excuse to slip away. I ducked into a secluded corner behind the grandstand where no one would notice. I sank onto the cold concrete steps, my back against the wall, panting. The competition had drained all my mental and physical energy, but a sense of accomplishment and indescribable joy welled up inside me. I did it. I didn't disappoint him. As I was lost in thought, a tall shadow suddenly blocked the sunlight in front of me. I startled, looking up. It was Ethan. He had taken off his judge's jacket, wearing only his familiar tactical shirt. He stood there, hands in his pockets, silently looking at me. I didn't know how long he had been standing there. "Tired?" he asked, his tone as calm as if asking about the weather. I nodded, too exhausted to speak. He said nothing more, simply sat down beside me. The distance between us was very close, our shoulders almost touching. The atmosphere was strangely quiet. I was so tense I held my breath. Why is he looking for me? To praise me? Or to summarize the training process? But he remained silent. His silence was even more terrifying than scolding. I secretly glanced at him. His profile was still sharp and cold, but under the sunlight, there seemed to be a touch of gentleness. I gathered all my courage, intending to speak. "Ethan, you..." He didn't give me a chance to finish. He suddenly reached out and pulled me forcefully towards him. My back hit his firm chest. His other hand held the back of my neck tightly, not allowing me to escape. "You did very well." His husky voice resonated right above my head. Is this praise? Before I could process it, he leaned his head down. I felt his hot breath getting closer and closer. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. And then, a soft, burning sensation, possessing a demanding quality that allowed no resistance, suddenly pressed against my lips. This was a deliberate kiss. It was strong, deep, carrying all the restraint, pride, and even tenderness that he had always hidden. My mind went blank. All the remaining strength in my body seemed to be drained by his kiss. I could only unconsciously cling to his shirt, letting him lead. When he finally released me, both of us were breathless. He didn't pull back, his forehead still rested against mine, our breaths mingled. "Your reward," he whispered, his voice husky with emotion. He gently pulled back slightly, but his hand still held my waist tightly. His eyes gleamed like those of a wolf who had found its prey. "And also your punishment." Punishment for what?" I mumbled, my voice trembling. He chuckled softly, a deep, mischievous laugh. "Punishment for daring to make my heart beat erratically," he said, leaning close to my ear, his voice like a sweet sentence. What kind of logic is that? What does his erratic heartbeat have to do with me? Clearly, it's his own doing. I dared not think further. He maintained that position, close to my ear, his hot breath on my neck making me shiver. After a few seconds of silent torture, he slowly pulled back, the corner of his mouth curved in a satisfied smile. "Let's go," he said, naturally taking my hand, intertwining our fingers and squeezing tightly. "The closing ceremony is about to start." But, I stammered, still reeling from the kiss and the declaration. "No buts," he pulled me along. His tone allowed no refusal. "The chief instructor's fiancé cannot be absent from the most important ceremony." He used the title of fiancé to suppress me again. Being dragged by him out of the secluded corner, I only had time to adjust my clothes and messy hair. My heart was still pounding like a drum. The closing ceremony was grandly held in the large auditorium. Thousands of students and faculty members were all present. Ethan and I arrived just in time. He released my hand, signaling me to return to the design department section, while he went straight to the presiding area. The moment he stepped onto the stage, he returned to being the cold-faced, dignified, and imposing Commander Ethan. Throughout the ceremony, I felt like I was sitting on pins and needles. His words and kiss kept replaying in my mind. I occasionally sneaked glances at the stage, and each time I caught his eyes looking towards me. Finally, it was Ethan's turn to give the closing speech. He stepped onto the podium, his deep, resonant voice echoing throughout the auditorium. He summarized the entire training process, commending outstanding groups and individuals. His speech was concise, to the point, without a single superfluous word typical of his military style. After concluding his speech to thunderous applause, he nodded a greeting and stepped down. Everyone thought he would go to the faculty section, but no. Before thousands of astonished eyes, Ethan walked directly towards the student section. His steps were firm, his objective clear. My heart suddenly pounded, a premonition surging within me. No way. He walked through the bewildered crowd parting to either side and stopped right in front of me. The entire auditorium fell silent, all eyes fixed on us. Ethan said nothing. He just silently reached out, took my hand, and pulled me to my feet. I was completely frozen. He held my hand tightly, pulling me forward towards the podium. He took the microphone from the hand of a stunned organizer. He glanced at my face, crimson as if about to steam, a barely concealed hint of affection in his eyes. He brought the microphone to his mouth, his deep, clear voice resonating throughout the auditorium. "Just a quick introduction to everyone." He paused for a second, his gaze never leaving me. "This is Serena." Then he made an announcement that made the entire auditorium erupt. "My fiancé." Boom, the auditorium exploded with gasps of disbelief. My team leader's jaw dropped, my friends' eyes were wide with shock. I just wanted to find a hole to crawl into. Without giving me a chance to escape, Ethan put down the microphone, held my hand tightly, and pulled me straight out of the auditorium through the sea of stunned people. When we reached a quiet corridor, he finally stopped, turning to press me against the wall. He looked at my blushing, almost faint expression and subtly curled his lips. "This public declaration," he leaned down, his voice carrying a hint of amusement, "do you think it was effective?" I looked up into his deep, dark eyes that reflected my image. I mumbled, "Aye." "No need to speak." He raised a finger to my lips, cutting me off. "I know you're very satisfied." He took my hand again, intertwining our fingers, squeezing tightly. "Good," he said, his tone full of satisfaction. "Let's go home." He paused for a moment, leaned close to my ear, and whispered one last sentence. "The end of this entire special military training period, but your punishment isn't over yet." The end.